Now, in a stunning development, North Korea has claimed that a US soldier who crossed into the country last month is in its custody and that he has sought refuge there or in a third country due to, quote, inhuman maltreatment and racial discrimination in the US Army. US Army Private Travis King crossed the military demarcation line into North Korea during a tour to the joint security area in the demilitarized zone separating the two Koreas on the 18th of July. The official Korean Central News Agency said King had admitted that he illegally intruded into North Korean territory, echoing American official statements that he was believed to have crossed the border intentionally. Now, just who is Private Travis King? He is a reconnaissance specialist who has been in the US Army since January 2021 and was in South Korea as part of his rotation. Before crossing the border, he served 2 months in detention in South Korea for assault charges and was released on the 10th of July. King was supposed to fly back to the US to face disciplinary proceedings but managed to leave the airport and join a tour of the demilitarized zone which separates North and South Korea. The DMZ, one of the most heavily fortified areas in the world, is filled with landmines surrounded by electric and barbed wire fencing and monitored by surveillance cameras. Armed guards are supposed to be on alert 24 hours a day, although witnesses say there were no North Korean soldiers present when King ran over. His family had previously told the US media that he had spoken of experiencing racism in the US Army. They also said his mental health appeared to have declined after he spent time in a South Korean jail. Now, the Korean news agency has reported that during the investigation, Travis King confessed that he had decided to come over to North Korea as he harbored ill feelings against the inhuman maltreatment and racial discrimination that he and many others faced in the US Army. He also expressed his willingness to seek refuge in the DPRK, that's North Korea, or a third country, saying he was disillusioned at the unequal American society. That is the statement that's been released by the North Korean official media. The US says it cannot verify these claims. Concerns have been growing over the welfare of the US soldier who has not been heard from or seen since his crossing. How to classify the 23-year-old has been an open question for the US military. The US is trying to negotiate Private King's release with the help of the UN command that runs the border area and has a direct phone line to the North Korean army. Responding to the North Korean report, a Pentagon official said their priority was to have Private King brought home safely through all available channels. North Korea has given no information on how it plans to treat Private King, but said the soldier admitted he had illegally entered the country. The fact that North Korea's statement emphasized that King's entry was illegal suggests that it is not thinking of having him stay even if he wants to. The statement did not say if Travis King would face prosecution or punishment, and there was no mention of his current whereabouts or condition. North Korea is one of the few countries still under nominally communist rule and has long been a highly secretive and isolated society. Its government, led by Kim Jong-un, stands accused of systemic human rights abuses. Analysts say the detainment of Travis King has played right into North Korea's anti-US messaging at a time when relations between the two countries are at an all-time low. Pyongyang is most likely relishing the opportunity to highlight racism and other shortcomings in American society, especially given the international criticism it receives for its human rights abuses.
We have the Army has launched an investigation into this incident. It's going to be led by Army counterintelligence personnel, and they'll be conducting this in coordination with U.S. Forces Korea. So we, at this moment right now, I can't tell you more about his whereabouts. That's something that the investigation would reveal. Our biggest concern about Private King is that we want to bring him home. And we are doing whatever we can through the interagency from DOD and other partners to find a way that we could bring him home. Again, as you heard me say, we have not heard any contact. We have not received any communication back from the North Koreans, but that is something that remains our focus.
The conversation has commenced with the KPA through the mechanisms of the armistice agreement.
Let's go back to Shri in Washington, D.C. to understand this story better. Shri, there are claims and counterclaims. What exactly should be made of this development? What's interesting is that while the two countries, the US and North Korea, may have their own versions of what exactly happened, there seems to be one area of agreement. They both agree that Travis King entered North Korea intentionally. It was by no means an accident. And then, of course, there is the allegation being made by North Korea that he does not want to return to the US because Travis King has faced racism and discrimination and inhuman treatment within the US Army. All that the US is saying is, we want to bring him back home safely, and then there are reports that he was going to face disciplinary proceedings on his return to the United States. So what should we really make of all these claims and reports that are emerging?
Right. So Neha, the way I see it is this is a great PR gift wrapped in military uniform sent to Pyongyang by Travis King. So there is no doubt that Mr. King has possibly crossed over of his own volition, but I think the reasons may not be as accurate as what the Central News Agency of North Korea has stated, because, you know, let's remember that before Mr. King crossed over to North Korea, he was supposed to actually to be sent back to the US, Texas in particular, to face disciplinary action for having assaulted an individual in South Korea, and he had served 2 months in prison. So there's no doubt that Mr. King was going through some sort of personal issues, maybe even mental health issues, and that may have prompted him to go over to North Korea in the hope of getting some sort of attention, if not some sort of relief or any kind of hope, but maybe just media attention to his situation. So that could be the reason, Neha. But it's a great PR moment for Mr. Kim Jong-un, and North Korea will milk this to every last drop. But let's quickly look back at the history of US soldiers defecting to North Korea. I mean, there have been only 6 such publicized cases where American soldiers have crossed over, and this has gone on from 1953 itself, when soon after the war, a bunch of American soldiers crossed over to North Korea. And many of them actually ended up acting in North Korea propaganda films on how US is basically a terrible country. It doesn't offer racial equality, discriminates people, blah, 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 and all those things. So basically, they played into the North Korean narrative as willing actors. So in this case, at a time when US and North Korea relations are also strained, in fact, after one of the American students, Otto, who died after he returned, after he was held in North Korea for almost 17 months, he came back to US in a comatose state, he died. US has banned travel to North Korea and has asked North Korea to become more responsible as a nation and also look at its own human rights. So this is a great moment for North Korea to turn around to US and say, I mean, don't preach us, because look at what your own people, and that too a soldier, is saying about your government and your military, that he was harassed, he was discriminated, there's no equality for him. So I think this is just a PR moment. Now to the question of when will Mr. King be released, I have no doubt that North Korea will release him, but they may not do so in a hurry. They may want to milk this PR moment a bit longer before Mr. King is returned, because they really don't want him there, because as a lowly private, as a soldier, he has very little strategic value for North Korea in terms of information. Had it been a general or a senior army officer, then maybe North Korea would have wanted to interrogate him for more military strategic information. But in this case, he's just a small pawn, which has a limited use for North Korea. After that, I have no doubt he'll be sent back to US, Neha.
A gift for North Korea. You know, even though we don't know the entire truth about Travis King's story and we don't know what will become of him eventually, but I find it fascinating that some of these American soldiers, as you just pointed out, seem to actually believe that North Korea is a better country to be in than the United States of America.